let's look at Chapter 6, Part 2. We're going to concentrate on numbers. Now, most likely you're not going to have a whole lot of numbers in the text you need to translate on the test, so you might not need to memorize a whole lot of them. Maybe 1 through 10 would be good to memorize. There's still a good chance that you'll pass no matter what. But what we have is we have, I don't need to read the English here, you can read them just as well as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So those are 1 through 10. And just like in English, once you start getting above 10, we've got some special numbers where it's like we've got 11, which is a special number. So here we have 11 for 11. And that's interesting. You can kind of see the word 1 in there. And then the X and the Z from 10 kind of are the same thing. So that kind of makes sense. 12. And so that's 12, and you can see how that's kind of similar to 2. 13, well, that's similar to 3. And we've got 14. So here we've got 14, 15, 15, 16, and after 16 they start becoming a little more regular. Like after we've got 11 and 12, and 13 is almost regular. 14, 15, those are kind of regular. So we've got 17, 18, and 19, which mean 10-7, 10-8, 10-9, 10-9. So you do a little math to get the 10-7, and that comes out to 17, 18, and 19. So those are the numbers 1 through 19. Which of course are the most common ones. And now we've got some more numbers, and we're not going to worry too much about how we put the numbers together, but just get the vocabulary. We've got 20, which is 20. Now, so notice we've got two silent letters here, G and T. Well, actually, the N is kind of silent because the IN makes a nasal sound, so it's 20. So that's really only two sounds. And that means 20. 30, you can kind of see the 3 root in there, it's 30. 40 is 40. 50 is 50. 60 is 60. 70 is 70. Wait, what in the world is that? Turns out that in French, they don't have a word for 70, so you have to say 60-10. That's kind of weird. And they don't have a word for 80, so you have to say 80. You have to say 4 20s, which is 80. That's a little bizarre. But something interesting is that how does Abraham Lincoln's most famous speech start off? It's fourscore and 7 years ago. Score is the same thing as 20, and so when he says 87 years ago, that's going to be 87, 87 years ago. 80 is the same as fourscore. And when we hear that speech, we say, well, that resonates with my, that's a very touching speech, which might indicate somehow we've got these French structures still in us. So that's 80. Now 90 is going to be 90, so it's going to be 4 20s 10. And you got to do a little calculating there. Now it's interesting, that's only in French that they do this. In Switzerland and in Belgium, and I believe also in Quebec, they have a word for 70 and 80 and 90. Because they said we don't want to be doing this little calculation every time that we count numbers. But that's just a little interesting thing. I've never seen a test where you've had to know these specific numbers like that. Now the big rounded numbers, 100 is 100, and that's where we get our word cent, which means 1/100th of a dollar. It's also where we get the word percent, which means per 100. So 63% means 63 per 100. 1,000 is mille. That's where we get our word for mile, which I think was originally 1,000 steps, or 1,000 really big steps, or it's changed since they started calling them miles. A million is a million. That's the same as in English. But a billion, one with 9 zeros, so a million has 6 zeros. And generally in French, you write them with spaces between groups of 3s. With 9 zeros, 1,000 million, it's un milliard, so that's a billion. And in French, un billion is what we would call a trillion. A million millions is un billion. So that's that one's a little tricky because it's 1,000 times bigger than our billion. Now, some useful some useful number information is that commas and decimal points are used interchangeably sometimes from the English system. So if you saw this number, 1.000, comma 00, that would be equal to 1,000.00 in English. So this is 1,000. It's not exactly one, because they use periods where we use commas, and they use commas where we use periods. Now, when people started using computers in the 1980s, writing numbers like that didn't work out too well. So a more modern way of doing it is leaving the point out there, but still they'll have the virgule, the comma, to separate the decimal points from the main number. So this would be like formatted. This is the default format in Excel and Word for large numbers nowadays. Now, if you're talking about money, the money signs come before or after the figure. So if something were $29.99, we could write it as US dollars, $29.99 or $29.99, and this would be 29,99 dollars. So that'd be 29, 29, virgule is comma, and then 99, 4 20s, 10, 9 would be 99. The money that they used to use before, I think, about 1998 or so, were the francs, French francs, and the abbreviation was FF. So this would be 100 francs français, 100 French francs. Now they use euros, and it's C with an equal sign for it. So this would be 25,00 euro, 25.00 euros. Now, ordinal numbers. Ordinal numbers are when you have an order to things like first, second, third, fourth. The word first is premier or première, depending if it's masculine or feminine. And the abbreviation is premier and première. But for the other numbers, you just take the number and add yem to it. Deuxième, troisième, centième would be the second, third, or hundredth. So that's how we make the ordinal numbers. So if you see these little e's up there, that's kind of like th in the superscript, or the yem would be the ordinal number suffix. Now let's go over the demonstrative determiners, or the demonstrative adjectives. And we've seen these before when we studied the little family of words starting with C. And the masculine singular can be either ce or set if it's in front of a vowel. The singular feminine is set, and the plural, both masculine and feminine, is se. And these can be translated this or that for the singular, or these or those for the plural. So we say ce chat, this cat or that cat. Cet ami, this friend or that friend. Cette chat, this female cat or that female cat. And ces chats would be these cats or those cats. Now we can also connect si or la as suffixes on nouns and pronouns to specify, do we mean over here or over there? This one or that one? So the si attached means the close one, either time-wise or physically. So if I said ceci, that would be this here, this one, or this. La, sometimes with an accent, would be there, the one farther away. So cela would be that there, that one, that. So we could say something like ce livre-ci would be this book, or this book here. Cette structure-là would be that structure, or that structure there. And then we have the standalone words ici, which mean here, and là, which mean there. So though the si and the la help us localize things if we want to specify whether it's this one or that one, whether it's here or there. Oops. Now let's look at demonstrative pronouns. Previously we were looking at adjectives, but now we're going to be looking at pronouns because they can stand alone representing a noun. So let's look at English first, because the English does some really tricky things, and if we can understand different phrases that are equivalent in English, we can see how the French gets translated better. So if I say Bob's hat differs from Paul's, you know what I'm talking about. I'm saying that Bob's hat is different from Paul's. They don't have the same type of hat. Now, but that from Paul's, what I really mean is Bob's hat differs from the one Paul has. Or, even more specifically, Bob's hat differs from that one that Paul has. So that's everything when we say Paul's. When we just use Paul with the apostrophe S, what we're really talking about is that one that Paul has. So there's a lot of ideas that are included in that apostrophe S. So what we're going to use for that one, or the one, or that one that Paul had, that one, that, we're going to use these pronouns, celui, or cell in the singular, and in the plural we've got ce and cell. So the singular is celui or cell, meaning that one, or the one. The plural will be ce or cell, meaning those or the ones. Le chapeau de Bob diffère de celui de Paul. Bob's hat is different than the one of Paul. So that would be Bob's hat is different than Paul's, or the one that Paul has. Celui de Paul is the one that belongs to Paul. So that's an example of how we use these demonstrative pronouns. So here's some exercises, and you work on these and see if you can make sense out of them. Write down your answers, and when you've got everything written down, you can go to the next video.